This drama that has all the ingredients of a catchy web series. Poor performance on the field, power struggles off the field, the cricket board being dissolved, membership of the International Cricket Council being suspended, claims of assassination attempts being made by the sports minister. Yes, assassination attempts, only for him to be sacked by the president within hours of making that statement. Sounds quite dramatic and nearly unbelievable, right? It indeed is quite the story, and no, I'm not talking about Pakistan. Welcome to Sri Lanka cricket. The island nation is going through a turbulent patch. We'll get to how and why of it, but first, let us get you up to speed with the latest. Meet Roshan Ranasinghe. He's the former sports minister of Sri Lanka. Ranasinghe was sacked from his post on Monday. Why? Because the ex-minister accused the president of Sri Lanka, Ranil Wickremesinghe, of trying to assassinate him.
I fear I could be killed over my work to clean up the cricket board. If I am assassinated on the road, the president and his chief of staff will be responsible.
Now that's quite a tall claim. The president didn't respond to these allegations. Instead, he removed the sports minister promptly after this statement. Clearly a sign that all is not well. But how did things get to this point? And what does it have to do with Sri Lankan cricket? The answer lies in how closely politics and sport are linked and intertwined in Sri Lanka. It started with Sri Lanka's poor campaign at the World Cup in the match against India. The Lankan Lions were bundled out for 55. This came, of course, at the heels of a very horrid display in the Asia Cup final in front of their home fans. Eventually, they finished 9th on the points table at the World Cup, just ahead of Netherlands, which also means they missed the qualifications for the Champions Trophy. On expected lines, heads rolled in Colombo. The sports minister accused the board of corruption and called for them to resign. The Sri Lankan Cricket Board demanded answers from the team, the coach, chief selector, just about everyone as to why and how things went so horribly wrong. It even put a statement saying that team's performance in the World Cup raised questions about their preparations or the lack of it. Then the board's secretary put in his resignation. Things only escalated from there. Sports Minister Ranasinghe stepped in. He dissolved the cricket board unilaterally and got an interim committee in place to look into the SLC's future. The committee was led by this man, Arjuna Ranatunga, Sri Lanka's World Cup winning captain, a legendary figure in the country. Now, just a side note, laws in Sri Lanka allow the sports minister to make such interferences. But for the minister to have actually gone ahead and taken this step was considered very extreme. A power struggle followed. President Wickremesinghe said the sports minister's move was unilateral and that the government wasn't taken into confidence. The matter pertaining appointment of the committee went to the court as well. Amidst all this, the International Cricket Council, or the ICC, stepped in. It took cognizance of this intervention by the government and ended up suspending SLC's membership.
The ICC board met today and determined that Sri Lanka cricket is in serious breach of its obligations as a member. In particular, the requirement to manage its affairs autonomously and ensure that there is no government interference in the governance, regulation and/or administration of cricket in Sri Lanka. After hearing representation from SLC, the ICC board decided that Sri Lanka can continue to compete internationally both in bilateral cricket and ICC events after being suspended recently for breaching its obligations as a member.
That was the politics of it. But there are larger questions that this incident raises. Where does all of this chaos leave the team? Does it have a bearing on their performance on the field? And more importantly, where does this leave the system? The board that is expected to have absolute control over cricketing affairs. You see, in recent years, the Lankan Cricket Board has found itself in a pickle quite a few times. The charges from corruption, unfair elections, officials allegedly engaging in gambling to excess interfering by governments. The board has been in the thick of all of this. In fact, the sports minister of Sri Lanka in 2018 himself admitted to this. Haran Fernando, who was the sports minister back then, said the ICC showed a confidential report to him. The report stated the SLC administration is corrupt from top to bottom. Whichever way you look at it, all of these controversies do have a bearing on the players and the team. If you don't have a stable backroom in place, you cannot get the right team to pick the right squad and ensure everything goes as per plan on the field. And it shows in the performances. Sri Lanka hasn't won a major ICC tournament since the 2014 T20 World Cup. That's almost a decade now. Following the retirement of stalwarts like Mahela Jayawardene, Kumar Sangakkara, Lasith Malinga, the list is endless. in the last decade or so, the Sri Lankan management has really found it tough to build a solid core. Imagine you're a Sri Lankan fan growing up watching the likes of Ranatunga, Chaminda Vas, Sanath Jayasuriya and Muthaiya Muralidharan to now even struggling to field a proper playing 11. Not just that, the chaos in the system also affects the overall functioning of the board. What do we mean? You see, running a cricket board is an expensive affair. You have to have sufficient money to build infrastructure, groom players for the future, pay salaries, rope in sponsors and fans. In the last couple of years, Colombo has faced a severe economic crisis as well, and that has had its ripple effect on the board too. But if you have a stable leadership, you can navigate through difficult waters. Sample this. In 2022, Sri Lanka cricket recorded a profit of 6.3 billion compared to rupees 2.1 billion in 2021. It's the highest ever. That's a threefold increase in revenue. Where did the money come from? The board says there are four main sources: domestic and international games, sponsorship, and ICC's disbursements. Imagine the things one can do with that sort of profit. Get a proper system in place where you can scout solid domestic talent, groom them so that they're good enough to play for the country. Who knows? Maybe take a cue from their neighbor, India, and the domestic setup it has. Or even ramp up the infrastructure, make the stadiums friendly for both players and fans. But clearly, at the moment, Sri Lankan cricket has more questions thrown at them than hold the answers. And the fans would desperately hope that there is light at the end of a very dark tunnel.